Welcome to today's Career Class. I want to welcome you as part of our Career Class series. And my name is Alan Kearns. I'm the managing partner and founder of Career Joy, and I'm pleased to welcome you as part of this process. And I recognize that you're here in a lot of different circumstances. Some of you are here because of choice. Some of you are here because of restructuring. Some of you are here because somebody motivated you to be here. And really what I want to be sharing with you today is really kind of the series that you're going to be entering in, and how really this can help you and support you as you think about what's next. You think about how to move forward, whether it's chosen or unchosen, or out of frustration or out of excitement, or I recognize you're coming at all different directions in this journey. And so I want to welcome you. And I want to share with you a little bit of the agenda today, a little bit about us and our history and why we have had a lot of success helping people like you through this journey. I want to share with you a little bit about a change in the employment landscape and why the type of work we're doing and the type of things you're going to be learning through this career class is going to be helping you, not just in your next job, but actually as you move throughout your career. And that's really the theme of this entire work we do. We always say, are you managing your career as your career managing you? And for some of you, that may seem like, yeah, of course I'm managing my career. Others like, is it possible to manage your career? Isn't it just you've got the job market, wherever the jobs are, you kind of go. And I think it's a combination of things, but we really believe it's never been more important to manage your career. And I'm going to share with you why I think that sort of the changes around the economy, the employment landscape. And that's why we created this Career Class webinar series, is really to bring a new level of modern thinking, modern ideas, and approach. And some of the things you're going to see as you go through this series, you'll see maybe some repetition from some people as they share ideas from different angles. And that's the idea, that we've actually integrated a team approach rather than me taking you through this entire series. And so you may see here something set by one coach and slightly different by another coach, or maybe sometimes a contrast. And so not to worry about that. And at times, by the way, we're human, so you may hear us say ums and ahs and things like that. So that's, hopefully you can look beyond that, but that's just the reality. And really about this ROI, about how this will help you. And that's really about the investing some of the time on the front end will help you do better in your resume building, in your networking, in how you interview, and all the different pieces that you think through as you go through this entire process. That's really the ROI. Then investing some of your attention into this should really help you. And then I'll kind of give you an overview of the Career Class webinar series, and they're continually evolving. We're continually adding to this series. So as we have a suite now, and I'll describe some of those today, but there's a bunch of new ones also we're adding as well. So I want to welcome you to that. So why did Career Joy start? Maybe that will be helpful to give you a bit of context, why we can help you and why our story matters to you. And really it started with, I actually was educated as an optician, and I realized that it was something I was really good at. I followed the kind of the family pattern. I wasn't forced into it, but I realized sort of early on in my career, better or worse in a dark room wasn't going to do me. I wasn't going to really enjoy that. I had a friend of mine that was a recruiter, and got to know him over a couple of years, and he said, why don't you come meet my boss? And so I went and had breakfast with his boss one time, and then that kind of led to, one thing led to another. Next thing you know, I was in the recruitment industry, recruiting at a very senior level for the Toronto Blue Jays and big companies all across the country. And here I was, this optician, and now I was, a couple of years later, I'm out recruiting at a very senior level, organizations throughout the country and the executive search. So that led me to start up a company that did retainer search and working with organizations as a headhunter. And what I discovered in my own journey was that many, many people like me kind of stumbled along trying to figure it out. And I had a picture, but it wasn't really clear to me. And also what I realized is how little I really knew about job search, and really knew. And it wasn't until I became a headhunter and an executive headhunter that I really started to understand how it really worked, and observing who did well and who didn't do well, and why, and why was some people promoted and why were other people not promoted, and starting to understand that. And that led to a kind of interesting conversation. At one time, a person who was being interviewed for an executive position came to us and said, would you coach me? I'm being interviewed for this position. You guys aren't working on it. Could you help me? And at that point, I had started my own company called Talent Lab, and we were doing quite well. And we're all across North America doing search at a senior level in tech space. And so this person came to me and said, one of my teammates said, could you help this person? I thought, oh, I guess we could. And so we ended up helping him. He ended up getting the CEO position. And then it led to this whole journey of realizing there are many people, not just CEOs, but obviously people at all levels of your career. And you might be a young student, or you might be a senior level person. We've worked with a broad spectrum of people, but really they're all asking the same question. And so we now sort of, 17 years later, and we work across the country with organizations, individuals. So we've got an organizational perspective, working with some of the large and small companies right across the country, kind of helping both employers and individuals think about how to manage their leaders and how to manage their careers internally, but also how to help others manage their career, and really being way more thoughtful about this than it's classically be done. And that's really why CareerJoy started. CareerJoy started recognizing that there are many people asking about what's next and where to go. And I've done a lot of media work. I've been on pretty well most major media outlets talking about this topic of who are you? What are the opportunities? How do you brand yourself? If you're doing well, how do you leverage that? If you're struggling, why might you be struggling? And what I've discovered is not always do the best people get the best out of their career. There's a whole bunch of variables to that. And that's really what this CareerClass series is about, is to helping your job search, but not only that, but help you to think differently about your career and where you're going. Really, that's the question you're asking, is where does the opportunity in my career intersect? Where do those things intersect? And that's really the goal of this, is to bring some clarity in that. And sometimes it's a shorter term thing and you just need to land, and we get that. And longer term, you're thinking about options. But I would like you to hold that a bit wider if possible. We just seen so many good things happen with our people we partner with people like you, who kind of entered into this and said, okay, you know what, maybe I think about myself a certain way, maybe I think about opportunities a certain way, maybe I think there's no jobs out there, et cetera, but maybe there is. And those are the kind of things I want to break down, some of the myths and realities. Like one of the myths is, what's the job market like? And I said, that's a great question, but it's not the right question. What's the job market right for you is a better question. So those are the kinds of things that we want to think through this series, is, and break down some of the myths and some of the realities. I'm not going to tell you just run and do what you love and everything will happen. I'm not going to tell you that, magically change your resume and the world will be your oyster. The goal is not to give you rhetoric and, kind of smarmy kind of things. The goal is to give you practical ideas grounded in reality by our team, which I think a really great team of people that we work with. And we work coast to coast in lots of sectors at lots of different levels and with organizations. So that's the other interesting thing is, as I mentioned, some of the companies we work with. These companies, we get the inside tracks of who they promote and why, and who they fire and why, and what all that looks like. And some of it's, there's lots of reasons why these things happen. So we want to give you some of the reasons why restructuring happens, why it doesn't happen. And it's not always personal. Oftentimes restructuring happens just because it's just practical. It's just the way it is. It's not necessarily so personal. So these things are rather complex. But we worked in all kinds of spaces. So that's the goal, is to help you think through this and do well. And with some of our broader thinking, as we think about the changes in the workforce, as in our work lab research department, we have a work lab research where we do the latest research on what's changing in the employment landscape, what's changing with employers and how they're thinking about this. So that's really the goal. How does it work with recruiters? How do hiring managers work? Why branding works? Why sometimes a resume is overly sold, and why your strategy is important. And those are the kind of things that we're going to be talking through this, so that you're going to find a quicker way to enter that where your opportunity and career intersects with less stress and better results. Kind of taking you through a full life cycle of things that we'll be talking with you through this entire process, through the entire series, through the different elements we'll be working through, from resume to LinkedIn to networking to your assessments to job search tools to how recruiters work to salary negotiations to your first 90 days. And that's really the premise of this entire series. As I mentioned, I'm educated as an optician. My original education, it really struck me a few years ago. I was chatting with a client and I realized, my job has been trained literally to help people to see things better, so that when people walked into my office, I was able to adjust things, and they walked out with a new prescription, and they're able to see things more clearly. I remember clients often saying, and as an optician, often saying, "Oh man, I can't believe what I was missing." And that is also the same with CareerJoy, that our coaching and our model, the things you'll be getting through this process as we work on your resume and as we help you, is that hopefully you'll see yourself more clearly, see opportunities more clearly, see the job market more clearly, and sort of have a perspective that is more accurate about yourself, about the options, and where you might go. The other thing for some of you may be saying, "Oh, gee, I wish I would have done this before." And I think one of my mantras is funny. I was just looking at the sign as I was putting together this presentation, and I've always said it's never too late or too soon. And that's something one of my mantras, that it's never too late to pursue this. And the sooner you do it, the better. And that's why I said we work from young professionals to more senior professionals. So sometimes it's later and sometimes it's soon. But it is when it's supposed to be. And that's what I believe, that you're here right now. And maybe your circumstances you didn't choose. It might have been a restructuring. You're like, I don't really want to be here. I totally get it. You want to be contributing and working and providing for your family and engaged in your work. But it's supposed to be. Whatever's happening right now, I think can be to your benefit, and you can grow through it. And you can make that leap. Now, here's my observation as we start to think about how most people have gone about changes. Well, a lot of times how people have made the leap is the market, what I call the market. The market is taking care of it. And, one thing comes to another, and the market hires you, and, you're where you are. And the markets grow and change. And so that's a lot of ways how a lot of people have chosen their education. They'll often say, well, I'm going to go to this program because I know at the end of it, they're going to be hiring. There's a market for my skills. And so I think that's one way that I've noticed a lot of clients or individuals in general managing their career, letting the market decide what's supply, demand, where should I go, what that looks like. That's one way. Another way is money, what I call money. That obviously let's face it, when you go down to Lululemon or to the GM dealer, your Honda dealer, or to your local food store or your cafe, they're not asking for your passion check. They're asking for money. So the reality is that that you're making choices and career choices out of money. And that's probably how you made that. Where can I maximize that? And for some of you, it may be that I am actually quite fine economically, and now money is a different relationship in my career. But probably along the way, you may have let money drive your decisions. And some of you may not have. But I'd like you to think about that. Where does money play into this? And what are your economic needs? And is it purely driven by money? And here's the reality as we work with this series with you, that I believe the more you manage your career, the more you're going to maximize your economic opportunities, whatever that means. And it doesn't mean that all of our clients, by the way, want to go make a ton of money. But you might be one of those, or you might be saying, I want the not so big career. I want to be able to find the right balance in my career. But again, a lot of people manage their career through money. And here's a kind of one that I've really seen a lot of. You'll notice in front of you, it's a conveyor belt. And that's what I call momentum. Just saying one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. Next thing you know, you are where you are in your career. I remember talking to a person who's just about to become a partner at a Bay Street law firm. And she said, I don't know how I got here. One thing led to another. I was in university, and my boyfriend was writing his LSATs, and I wrote my LSATs, and then I got into law school, and I thought, well, I've been to law school, I might as well go. And then she said, one thing led to another. And that might be like you, that you kind of where you are, just kind of out of circumstances. A boss came along and offered you this, and then next, 10, 15, 20 years later. And all of those things are really important. The job market is important, economics is important, and of course you want momentum. But I think you got to be careful with those three. The other thing I've seen a lot of people is make choices out of what I call friends and family. That you may have made choices based upon what your friends think, what your family thinks. And again, those are important things, but are they ideal? I don't know. So how do you go about better choices is really the way to think through this. And some of the mysteries I've seen is, what do my friends think? What do my family think? Another thing is a lot of people manage their career through what would Google do? Like Googling. I'll Google that. I'll Google where the opportunities. I'll Google my skill set. I'll Google what I could do next. And what I find interesting is Google didn't build its brand when it had a big decision in front of it on Googling the answer. When Google needed to make big decisions, important decisions at crucial junction points, it sought out expertise, it sought out guidance, it sought out individuals that would help them. And I think that's a really important thing, why I so believe in the work we do, is that we're not your friends and family. We're not Google. We're able to look at this question with context. Because Google has content, it doesn't have context. It doesn't know the situation as it relates to you. It just knows the information you give it. And I think, I spoke at the University of Saskatchewan Medical School, and one of the things we talked about was people walking in and to the doctor with all of their things that are wrong with them, and here's what is wrong with them, and here's the prescription they should write, literally. So I think you got to be careful about managing your career, managing the next steps, and just by Googling, like Google has the answer. I simply don't think it's true. I think, again, if you look at what Google's done so well as a company, is that it's known when to gather information, it's known when to seek counsel. And for many of you, this is a new experience working with a career coach. You've seen a lawyer, you've seen a doctor, you get it. This is really generic. But I think, again, I'll share with you why I think of the complexity, why the work we've been doing over the last 17 years, growing this area as clients have been thinking about it, independent, objective, expert opinion is so important. Or some of you have relied on your career being managed by recruiters. You've been sitting there and a recruiter comes along and says, hi, you want to talk? And the next thing you know, they move you to a new job. And again, I think recruiters have a really important part to play in this job and in your job search. But remember, the recruiters that work for you, they work for the organization. And you have to understand that you don't hire a recruiter, organizations hire recruiters. So organizations use recruiters to help them find good people in a timely manner and with less stress and more efficiency. And you have to really do your homework when you work with the recruiter. What's their agenda? What's their objective? And are they partnering with you? Or are they just moving you? And again, I spent a big part of my career recruitment. I believe in it, but recruiters have a bias towards a certain outcome. I think that's the other interesting thing about coaches like ourselves. We don't have a bias towards the outcome we're not paid any differently, whether you take a bigger job or a lesser job, whether you go to this company or that company. Our coaches that are working with you are truly going to be independent through this process and able to work with recruiters, understand how they work, and have a bigger market than that. The other thing I advise you just to be cognizant of that, and we'll talk about recruiters through the process with you. So why, if you think about how a lot of the way you've been managing your career, the types of things we talked about is important. Well, I'm calling this season we're in not the recession, but the resettion. Yeah, you heard that right. Kind of a play on words. This is a reset. That what we're heading in this phase of our economy I've sort of seen it happen over the last few years. And these are some of the things I've seen. Lots of change in the marketplace. Lots of market changes, real quick changes, more than we've ever seen. So this is a real change in the employment landscape. AI and its role, and where AI is being used, and the way AI is being used, and the way it's going to change the way we do work, and who does work, and how we do work. And a lot of people are saying, well, AI is going to take all the jobs away, and it's simply not true. But there is going to be a way we change the way we work with AI and some of the things we're currently doing. The market, the stock market and the economy and how that works, and the quickness of it and the changes of it. And that's another change in our economy that's different, the constant change, the constant up and down, and its impact on the way you and I work. Technology, 24/7, smartphones, all the things around us that are also changing the way we work, and the demands on our work, and the demands to be quick and responsive, and globalization, and all these things around that. That's changing the world of work. Brexit and all kinds of those other things that we say that are destabilizing countries and destabilizing trade and creating opportunities and creating challenges concurrently. Again, things we never really experienced before. And that globalization really is about synchronizing economies. And we're seeing kind of a combination over the next few years where we've been globalizing over the last 30 years. We've been in a phase of globalizing. That's not going to go away. But I think we're also seeing where countries are taking back things and pulling back things and changing things. And I think globalization and localization is going to be the new thing. And that's going to create both challenges and opportunities, winners and losers. And also companies are going to, in Canada, they're going to grow in Canada, and companies are going to go away in Canada because of these kind of themes. Changing consumer trends, millennial consumers, responsible consumerism, personalized demand, increase in focus on. So that also creates opportunities and challenges, right? That the new markets emerging and changing the way we buy, the way we sell. One of our clients is Shopify, example, great Canadian company that's really helped the way, kind of like anti-Amazon as an example. pandemics and health issues that we've all been seen in modern history, right? Things we've never seen before. So that changes things radically, and the elements of that as well, and companies that'll thrive in that, and companies that'll be challenged at that. Same with the organizations. The role of social media and the way it's played, and the way we find jobs, the way we communicate your brand, the fact that before a recruiter, 82% of employers will Google you before they'll even pick up the phone or send an email to think. That's why you're probably here. Either you Googled us before you met us today, or you referred to us through Google. So that's where Google does have a right to play. That kind of shows all the social media. So again, that changes the way. Do you have good social media skills? Are you using those things wisely? Do you understand the role they play? And we're going to talk about that. The amount of choice we have, and I was just in the grocery store in Loblaws, and you see like, this is just mustard. And I think, how does that relate to our conversation? Well, we're full of choices. This is, you can imagine, an employer's inbox, and it's looking for something. How does it choose who you are? And it's also the role that brand plays, which we'll be talking about through this series. You separate yourself by your brand. You separate yourself on that shelf by your brand. But the amount of choices, the amount of flavors, the way of customizing, things like that is also changing. The way recruiters work and how they're used and how people are chosen. The way we network. And how we network and these types of things. And that even though there's all of these platforms, Indeed, LinkedIn, social media, the reality is, and we've hired, we're up to, we keep continually grows an organization. And the first thing that I do is I'll go to my network and say, hey, who do you know that's a really great writer? We're looking for a resume coach. Or who do you know that we're growing our coaching team, our certified coaching team? Who do you know that would be good? And I actually go there first. So there's still the reality of, even with all of these things, that networking in your brand matters. And so all of these things have created what I call the perfect industrial storm. And this is why the things you're going to be learning about and working through matter. Because if you rely on just classical, I'm a good person, I'll work diligently, and not pay attention to these things, or not understand what opportunities are created, what challenges are created, how to leverage these things, you're going to struggle. And we want you to be in the top 20 percentile, or the top 4 percentile, or the top 0.8 percentile. And that's about being in the right place, doing the right things in the right organization. Because you can't afford just to let the typical market money momentum manage your career. With all of the changes that are going, it's just too unstable. So the question becomes, how do you manage your career? What does that look like? And I love what Arlene Dixon says about the true entrepreneur sees the world as it actually is. And I want you to see, and that's our goal, that you'd actually see the world as it actually is. And there's, what's interesting about the things I just shared is there's never been more opportunity out there. Let me say that again. There's never been more opportunity out there. On the other side of it, there's never been more challenges, and they go quickly and they change quickly, and the winners and losers change quickly. So this is why manage your career versus seeing yourself working as an employee forever and ever and ever as an organization is really, really key. Looking why it also matters, because looking at StrengthsFinders survey that that having the opportunity to do your best is not just a pragmatic, not just sort of philosophical. I think it's deeply practical. If you're not doing your best, your organization is going to see it, or you're going to struggle in that. So we want you to be in situations where you can do your best, so that you do have some certainty. And even if there's a change in your organization, you as a result of being known to doing really good work, will have a much easier time in your transition. So all this modern employment has changed as we look at the changes here, that all these things are just talking about, these lifetime employments, where globalization, ever-changing skill sets, work anywhere, anytime, disruptive, all of these things that are changing. And you're starting to see that the way that, the amount of people that used to stay in jobs is shrinking. Like, used to stay much longer. And that's the reality. So this is why the skill set, and I call this a skill set, of managing your career and learning how to job search is really key. Here's the other reality, that when you're in this situation where you're able to understand and the things we're going to help you with in a deeper way, is that you're 6 times more likely to engage at work in the right situation. 7.8% times more productive, 3 times more likely to have excellent quality of life. So this is why this topic is so important, that when you get yourself more aligned to the right work situation, that's the opportunity you have in front of you, is to say, okay, I'm in a transition, I'm in a change, I'm looking for a new role. So we have the opportunity for resetting this and getting into a situation where you can amplify versus what you had before. And this is what I really, when we talk about manage your career, we call this is our equation to manage your career. It's IQ plus EQ times CQ. IQ plus EQ times CQ. And this is about IQ is intelligence, EQ, emotional intelligence. What's CQ? Career intelligence. And when you take IQ plus EQ, you multiply them times CQ. And this is what the Career Class series is about. It's all about that CQ. It's all about that intelligence to understand the things we're talking about, your career and management. And that's really going to amplify whatever you're doing and reduce your stress, reduce your time. It's not a magic bullet, but it's just a smarter way of going about your whole search and your whole transition. It's a little bit like moving from swimming to scuba diving. You know, whether you like that or not, the metaphor is true that previously with swimming, it's easy, right? But scuba diving requires, it's more immersive. There's more things going above you and around you. And that's really what CQ is suggesting, is that the old way of managing career is just swim. You just swim along and you paddle along, you back paddle. But now the modern way of approaching career is multidimensional. Lots of things going above you, around you, beside you, you know, and you've got to raise your skill set, much like you can't just jump off the boat in the Great Barrier Reef and start scuba diving. Well, before my family and I dived off the Great Barrier Reef, they all had to be certified. And so this is what this series is about. It's like taking you from the ability to swim to the ability to really not only swim, but also to immerse yourself and really enrich your career. And for many of you, that this has been about change versus transition, if you in a restructuring, whether it's chosen or unchosen. And that's something I'll say as you start this, that change, while we talk about change, that it's not always easy, although for some people it's very easy, they're excited about it, but there is a difference between change versus transition. And change is sudden, managed, concrete, physical, right? Transition is gradual. There's a transition. And I think that's the thing to remember as you go through this, that for some of you, this was unexpected. I was chatting with a person this morning, and he had been with his organization for 30 years at a very senior level. It was completely unexpected. He just got a call one day, and we walked in the office, and you discovered that they were going a different direction. And he'd done a great job. It wasn't that. It was just going a different direction. And so dealing with that, and some of you have had that experience, and that's maybe why you're here. And some of you, it was just chosen. You've decided that you've been thinking about it for a while, and you've stepped out and you're making some decisions. Neither are right, but they have different realities. And here's a principle I've realized in transition, that before you start something new, you got to end well. And you got to realize that if you have been restructured, or even if you've chosen to leave something, I've noticed it's like a relationship. The ending of something has a bunch of things around it, and you see these things: shock, denial, anger, negotiation, depression, acceptance, all those types of things you're going to go through as you go through change in general. And I think it's just thinking this as you start this, that some of you, it's going to be easy for you, but some of you are going through different feelings around this, and that's okay. Ending well is important to starting well and resolving that. And if you're frustrated or angry at your firm for restructuring, we get it. I get why you feel that way. But being angry and frustrated and all these sorts of things, if you stay in that area, it's going to really limit your ability to move on in your life. And so you got to figure ways to resolve that, and share that with your coach if that's something you're struggling. It's not unusual, but end it well so you can start well. And that's really about changing. Even if you choose it, it's amazing sometimes the emotion around it. So we'll be dealing with that. So what's the greatest challenge for individuals? Is shifting the focus as you think through this from time management to energy leadership. And can allow us to discover our own unique formula for sustaining energy and resilience throughout each day. When we are calm and focused, we're more on top of demands of leadership or change. Conversely, when energy is low or manic, everything seems on top of us. So that's just something to be aware of, that we're going to work with you in your unique formula to help you through this. And as you think about managing your energy, and that's a really key thing in transition, your energy management and all the elements around that is key. And so this is the building blocks we're going to be working with you, of time, attention, energy as you work through the process, where you spend time, what you manage attention to, what your energy is, because that's the key piece to CQ, is that's the foundation of these things, right? But optimism is going to be a really important thing, particularly in different climates, and we go through different climates, and right now it's a very negative climate. So how do you protect optimism? And I think I love that Optimist Cafe. I love that saying, that the cup is never half full or half empty. You can always refill it. Kind of a bit of a quirky thing, but I thought it's true. So you have to ask the question. There's no point of saying there's no jobs, or there's no point of reveling in kind of the negative of the economy. We have to say, where is the economy going to? Because we do know economies continually shift. Is a question where they're shifting to, and protecting your optimism, protecting what is good about this, or what can be good about this, or how can you work this for a better outcome, is going to be key to you to have a better outcome. And it's not just your mindset, but I've been watching the Last Dance series on Netflix about Michael Jordan and his whole journey. And what you realize is just how important our mindset is around change and getting outcomes we want, whether you're Michael Jordan or you're a young IT person looking for your next job, protecting that optimism and doing good things that'll keep you healthy. So how do we approach this? What's our philosophy on this? Well, it's human. Your transition is not somebody else's transition. And that's one thing I'll say right at the beginning. It's something I'm really deeply important philosophical ground to everything we do in CareerJoy and everything we work with you. Is that you're a human going through a human journey. You're not a robot. You're not a data analyst. You're a person that's going through this. It's human, and it's looking at resilience and all the pieces of resilience that make you human. Our outlook, the things you're talking about, leadership, resilience, these types of things are going to be key to do well and recognize that what you go through in your situation is going to be different than somebody else. What this looks like for you, and even within your partner, how they would go through this is different. So resilience is going to be key, and how we customize this for you and what you need out of this process is very different for each person we work with. Modern, it's recognized, I call this the Uberizing of this, that we take a modern approach and looking at things in a modern way. What are the tools? What are the ways you can approach your job search in a more modern way? Fundamentally, people still hire people, by the way, but it's the way we approach things and modernizing your job search and modernizing the way you think about your career, the economy, these types of things, including the resume. One of the things I'll say is I think the resume is key. And we'll be working with you on your resume and building that, and one of our certified writers, our coaches will be working through it. But remember, that's an important piece, but it's not the piece. That a modern approach thinks of this as one component of many components. We'll be talking about that. And social media, we talked about that area. How do you use social media? How do you be smart about it? How do you be wise about it? And it's not always about you. Canadian. We see this from a uniquely Canadian perspective. We do work with a number of individuals in other areas. A lot of the people we're working with are coast to coast to coast to coast. and that's, so you may be in a situation you're thinking about another part of the country. But don't be afraid to share that with us. Like, hey, we had a client of ours that was in Edmonton saying, I'd really like to go to Victoria. And so we suggested to her, well, why don't you in your transition at least explore the option to go to Victoria. And lo and behold, she ended up with 3 job interviews in Victoria, and she moved to Victoria 5 years sooner than she would have because of restructuring that occurred with her. And that's just because she said, okay, maybe I'll explore that, and we can work with you on any part of the country and thinking through that and what's going on. And different regions have different strengths and different opportunities, so thinking through that. Our client base is working in different areas, so we've got a sense of that. So as you talk to your coaches, and our team will have a sense of different areas, whether it's public sector or private sector or not-for-profit, we're working in all of those areas. So I think that's the other thing we bring to this perspective is our deep knowledge across the country, but also Canadian companies and international companies that are working in Canada and how they approach this. Results. You want results. You want to land in that thing, and that's our goal here. Our goal is to help you with the results. We can't make the results for you, but we're going to partner with you. And that's really important, is to have for us a successful partnership with you. Is that you use your voice of what you want and how you want it, but also recognize what our coaches can do for you and what the process can do for you, but what you need to do for the process. It's not, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. That very famous John F. Kennedy quote. The same thing, ask not what the program could do for you, but what you can do with the program, how this program can support you, and how our coaching can support you to get the results you're looking for, to make sure you're working through the right door and walking through the right door. And that's our goal, that don't be afraid to share that with you. I've got 3 doors. ask your coach what their perspective is. Ultimately, we want you to own the question. Our job is not, we're not going to tell you which is the right door, but we'll certainly guide you on how to think through that and get perspective. And that's why we created this whole, because these things, that all of these things are a reality, that career and job search is a skill that can be learned, that you don't want to DIY this anymore. There's just too many moving parts. You don't DIY anything important. I always say to clients, if you inherited $1 million, you're not DIYing that. You're not going to run into the stock market and start throwing it down. You're going to work with a financial advisor who knows the market, who can get you a better return. And that's our goal, is to how you work with Linda's, our industry team, and how this, why we created this is because of all the things we just talked about. There's just so many moving parts. It's so much more complex, and it's so much more competitive. And when you get the support you're getting with our team, over and over and over again, we see better results. Can some people DIY this for themselves? I think they can. Some people can DIY, health and finance, but the patterns are of anyone I know that's done well in their life is they know when to DIY and they know when to get support, and that's key. So it's really about, investing in yourself and taking control in your future and giving you the tools you'll need to take control, advancing yourself professionally. The things we talked about, getting some negotiation and economic stability, and getting hired with less stress and better income. And really, ultimately, our goal here is that you land and thrive in your new role, whatever that is. And that's really about the value of these things, the value of accelerating, improving. Really, that knowledge transfer is really what's going to be happening here in general. And increasing your ability to leverage these ideas and leverage yourself through this. And ultimately, it's about empowering you and making sure you're in the best way. So we have a number of ways, from get the right job, how to align you and your job, to digital first impressions, your personal brand, to resumes that work for you. Remember that modern network, your way to a better job, interviewing and in and for modern times, negotiating and landing well that first 90 days. And you might be looking at self-employment and consulting and some of those things. So these are some of the areas that you, and some you may say, I want to spend more time in this and less time. That's a great thing about these webinars, is you can watch them over and over again, or skip them, or skip through them, or whatever it is. And so it's there for you, how you want to use it in the way you want to use it. But sometimes keep an open mind. You may say, I think I already know about this. Well, my advice is maybe do a quick scan of it anyways. You might pick up one nugget that can help you just to think through this. So getting the right job right now is, you'll learn just about the idea of what it means to take an active control and look at these things, and really looking at what you want and how to do that. So kind of what we'll be doing at getting the right job is really that idea of, is it possible, how to get the best job right now. 102 is really looking at digital first impressions. So the idea of how to use the social media and the different tools we're looking at, how to create an effective online presence, how to use LinkedIn and other tools like that, Indeed.com and other ways as well. Resumes at work, looking at resumes, looking at the pieces of, and we'll be working with you to build and leverage that and help you think about your resume broader than just this thing that'll works for you, but what that looks like. Networking, I think this is interesting. What's interesting? I'll just say there's a myth around people say, I'm not very good at networking. And I'll say, did you go through junior K to grade 7, grade 8? Well, then you traded at lunch, you played with people at school, like you do know how to network. So the other thing I'd say, there's a little bit of mystery about networking. There are some people better than others, they are, but you wouldn't have gotten where you are without networking. But we'll be sharing with you some better practices, digital networking, and all these types of things. Interviewing, Zoom interviewing, what it looks like, why interviewing matters. And also, the reality is the job search is flawed with complexity, and people hire people they like. And so I think the key thing, even in interviewing, is how do you connect with people? How well you research? How well you done those types of things? And then negotiating landing. I found a lot of people don't really understand their value. And so we're going to work with you through that to think about, we're just dealing with somebody who's getting an offer from Amazon and really doing the research around what they're worth and what that looks like, and what they can negotiate, what they can't negotiate. And that's, again, from deep history and all of these things, from being in the job market for so long and understanding all the principles. What you can negotiate, when to negotiate, how to negotiate, and how to be fair, and how to come up with a fair deal. It's a very strange time negotiating, because you're going to be working for that person at the same time you're negotiating, so it's a little bit more complex. And then self-employment, for some of you, that may be the thing you're thinking about, and we'll be working with you that. So the key thing is that you actually can manage your career. Doesn't mean you can control all the circumstances, doesn't mean you control who hires you or how it get hired, but you can be upskilling yourself so that when you're in front of opportunity, that you're going to be your best version of yourself, and you're going to be able to best communicate that, or best approach, or best. And that's really the whole goal here is, when all these things are shifting, how can you bring your best to the table so that you can perform your best? Again, much like sports, the difference between winning and losing is so narrow. And it's not always who's the best candidate. It is the person who does the best through the process. Let me say it again. It's not the best candidate that's always hired, the most qualified candidate, the one with the best history. You just have to look at elections around the world and see some candidates are hired. You're like, oh my goodness, how'd that person get hired? Well, because that person was the best at campaigning. They weren't necessarily the best candidate, but their best candidate. And whether you agree with that, it doesn't really matter. What matters is results for you. And so take away your bias of, well, I don't agree with that, or I don't think that's fair, and all that. So just actually work with that in a way that honors your integrity. And I think that's the thing. Investing a little bit extra with the right support will move you along. And that's really our goal, is that this whole series will just give you that edge, will guide you, will sharpen your saw, will help you grow. And that's the ultimate goal, that, work made better is really our brand. That's what we're really about. And that's really what CQ is about. And I really believe why this is important, because work informs so many things in our lives: our finances, our health, our relationships, our parenting, our friendships. And ultimately, you got to go somewhere every day. And I don't want it to be a TGIF, or oh no, or the Sunday night blues. We'd rather you be in a situation over time. Maybe it's not the next job you get, but at least setting you up for the next job, or whatever it is. That your work, that our goal is to make your work better. And as Ted Rogers says, the best is yet to come. Maybe you're in a situation that, Alan, that is like so far from my reality, you don't know it. And I get it, that every person we're dealing with has a different reality in this situation. But we do want to hold on to that we live in a country that offers incredible amount of opportunity. None of it easy, none of it simple, lots of competition, lots of complexity. But remember, there's literally tens of millions of people that want to come to Canada and enter into this market. Why? Because there's tremendous opportunities here. There's nothing easy or simple, but you got to be smart at it. And holding that idea that there's a better. Maybe it doesn't happen right away. Maybe it's a 2 steps back, 1 step forward. You might be in that situation, but at least hold on to that process and leverage that. And that's my goal for you in this process, is that you'd come out of this saying, you know what, maybe I didn't get the exact result I was working for, or maybe I got a way better result than I was looking for. But this process has helped me, think about things, prepare me better, navigate. Even when you're landing, that landing is really key. That you can do a better job in your new role, and that will help you advance in that. So maybe the job into isn't exactly what you want, but because of the skills you learn, because of the ideas we've helped you with, because of the coaching we received, you can upskill you so that you can get a better job in that role where you get hired. So your next step is just, can you think of this journey? And I know if you have questions, you may have questions, you can email me, alan@careerjoy.com. So ALAN@careerjoy.com. I know you're working with our team, so our team is there to help you. And that's my personal commitment to you. I don't think this is a panacea. I don't think there's any magic potion we have, but we have a really rigorous way of approaching this that's been thoughtful. We've worked with over 24,000 clients now. There's a lot of history here, and a lot of knowledge, and a lot of framework and instruction. It's not a formula, it's not the special sauce we have, but it is rigorous in its thing. And we care about the work we do, and care about the people we do it with. And that's my goal for you, is that you will, you be in a better situation and have more control, and have a better result. No matter what your circumstances, we're drawing into the set of circumstances you're in, that out of it would be better circumstances for you as you approach this. And we've got your back. We're going to do our best for you. Recognize, you need to have your back. You need to be committed to your better self and what you can do about that. So that's the main principle of managing your careers, is know thyself and be true to thyself. A very old idea, but never been more important and never been more relevant. No, you can't do with the money and do things loving the money will follow. I don't necessarily always believe in that, but I do think know thyself and be true to thyself throughout this process. And I think you're going to not only end up with work made better, but I think life made better, as they're so integrated. So as I said, you have questions, you have ways you can improve the process, let our team know, let our coaches know, let our success team know. And if you have others you think would benefit from this, then obviously refer them onto our site at careerjoy.com. And we're continually adding and improving these things. That's our kind of our philosophy in our whole company, is everything we're working at making things better all the time. So yeah, so welcome to this journey, and I'm know that, like I said, that some of you are here for a whole bunch of different reasons, but I'm thankful that we get to journey with you and support you through this. And like I said, we've got your back. Thanks.